Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to International Conference on Real Estate Management and Valuation, ICREMV 2022. So you all have now joined the final session of this year's conference, Real Estate Talk. And I'm happy to announce that we have over 400 participants. It's a large audience. And I hope that this session will be a very fruitful session for all of you. So without further ado, I take great pleasure in introducing this year's distinguished panelists. First, let me introduce Professor Padma Veerakoon. Professor Padma Veerakoon is attached to the Department of Estate Management and Valuation, Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce, University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Professor completed her Bachelor's of Science in Estate Management and Valuation from University of Sri Jayewardenepura, postgraduate diploma in Urban Development from University of Moratuwa, and Master in Urban Planning, Land and Housing Development from Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Thailand. She has also PhD degree in the School of Housing, Building and Planning, University Sains, Malaysia. She is a fellow member of Institute of Town Planners, Sri Lanka, and member of Geographic Information System, Sri Lanka. Also, she is an associate member of Institute of Valuers, Sri Lanka. Professor Veerakoon is a Sri Lanka, sir. So Professor Veerakoon is a renowned researcher in the academic circle. Her research interests cover a wide scope in geographic information system, urban land use planning, urbanization, and urban systems. She obtained University Research Award in several times. Many of her research being published in reputed refereed and index journal in global and local level. Currently, she holds Director in Center for Real Estate Studies, CRES, Department of Estate Management and Valuation, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, which is the organizing body of ICREMV 2022. Dear Madam, it is a great privilege to have you on board as one of the panelists in today's discussion. And I respectfully invite you to take your seat at the head table. Our next panelist is Mr. Ajit Fernando. Mr. Ajit is a fellow member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, who is also currently serves as the Senior Vice Chairman and the Chairman of the CPD and Education Committee of RICS Sri Lanka. He accounts for over 40-year experience as a valuation surveyor, property consultant, and a property manager. His career in the valuation profession commenced in 1975 on successful completion of Diploma in Valuation at Ceylon Technical College, Colombo. Upon the completion, he served in the Government Valuation Department for 2 years. He then proceeded with his further studies by completing BSc in Estate Management at South Bank University, United Kingdom. He has then worked as a manager in 2 of the leading real estate companies in Sri Lanka and incorporated his own property development company by the name The Property Co. in 1991. Currently, he serves as a panel valuer in number of leading public and private banks and financial institutions in Sri Lanka. Mr. Ajit Fernando also has acted as a consultant in number of land development projects, carried out feasibility studies on development projects, and marketing consultancy to well-known real estate firms. We are delighted to have you as one of the panelists in today's discussion. Dear Mr. Fernando, please take your seat in the head table. Our next panelist is Mr. Lalit Wijeratne, Acting Deputy Director General Planning, Urban Development Authority. Mr. Wijeratne is a senior town planner with over 25 years experience and about 10 years of experience in management. He is a distinguished alumni member of the Department of Estate Management and Valuation, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, who completed his bachelor's in 1997. He also holds a master's in science in urban planning in developing countries from Oxford Brookes University, United Kingdom, and a postgraduate diploma in urban planning and management from University of Twente, Netherlands. He has extensive knowledge and experience in the field of town planning. Mr. Jayewardenepura is presently leading the planning section in Urban Development Authority. He leads his team in the preparation of development plans, guide plans, development regulations, enforcement, and project formulation. It is with great pleasure I welcome you to today's session. Please take your seat at the head table. Next, I take great pleasure in introducing our next panelist, Mr. Megha Kularatne, Director of Finance and Planning, Maga Construction Private Limited. Mr. Kularatne is a civil engineering and commerce graduate from Monash University, Australia. He also holds a Master of Structures from the University of Melbourne. He is a chartered civil engineer and the winner of the late engineer L.S. De Silva Memorial Award of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka in 2012-13. He has both local and global work credentials, including working at John Holden on the East Line project in Melbourne. Mr. Kularatne heads the Maga's water supply construction sector, whose growth enabled the company to be recognized by the National Water Supply and Drainage Board as the sector's best constructor. He is also responsible for the sustainability strategy of the company and oversees its planning and development division, comprising tendering and corporate communication. Please welcome Mr. Megha Kularatne, one of the distinguished panelists of the Real Estate Talk of ICREMV 2022. Kindly take your seat at the head table. Last but not least, the moderator of the Real Estate Talk ICREMV 2022, Dr. Pratap Kalutantri. Yes, sir, kindly take your seat at the head table. Dr. Pratap Kalutantri is a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Estate Management and Valuation, University of Sri Jayewardenepura, and PhD holder from the School of Housing, Building and Planning, University Sains, Malaysia. He earned his BSc Estate Management and Valuation special degree from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura with first class honors, followed by an Master of Business Administration from Postgraduate Institute of Management, PIM, and MSc in Real Estate and Valuation from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. He is also a postgraduate diploma holder of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. He is a Chartered Valuation Surveyor and a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, RICS, United Kingdom, and a member of the Institute of Valuers of Sri Lanka, IVSL. Currently, he holds the position of Assistant Secretary of IVSL and a council member of RICS Sri Lanka. He has research interest in corporate real estate and business practices, and teaching in the areas of valuation, real estate marketing, and corporate real estate. Dr. Kalutantri has published many articles on corporate real estate marketing, property valuation, and geographic information system for real estate in national and international conferences and journals. That is our moderator of the session, Dr. Pratap Kalutantri. Without taking much time, I welcome all our distinguished panel of the Real Estate Talk under the theme Move Forward Amidst the Economic Crisis in Sri Lanka, Role of Real Estate Sector. Now I hand over the session to moderator Dr. Pratap Kalutantri. Sir, session is over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lakshi, the chairman of the ICREMV 2022. So let's begin our discussion. So the Real Estate Talk is a business forum of the ICREMV, and today's discussion is focused on move forward amidst economic crisis in Sri Lanka. The role of real estate sector is main focus. So before moving into the main discussion, I would like to give you a brief outline of our discussion as well as the current economic situation of Sri Lanka. So let's move. So first thing, my idea is that just have a small flashback from last decade, from 2022 to, sorry, from 2012 to 2022. So what was there? When it's come to the last decades, over the past decade, residential property development and construction projects have been continuously booming in Sri Lanka. And not only that, we had a progressive urbanization initiatives, futuristic landscaping, and liberal real estate policies to attract local and global investors. By the time, being the strategic geographical position where it's a natural phenomena where we had a strategic geographical position on the world map, and our international relation has made Sri Lanka an attractive hub for property investors from all corners of the world. But unfortunately, after 2019, with the Easter attack and as well as the pandemic, our economy is not stabilized and we are in a little bit so. So what happened? We had four major issues. So during the last 2 years, the 2022, we had an issue of the balance of payments. And by the time we had an issue on currency depreciation. Not only that, we had the foreign exchange issue. And finally, we lost large portion of the tax revenue as well. So this created an economic crisis in Sri Lanka. So now, our main focus is on how we can revive Sri Lankan economy with the help of real estate sector. There's no doubt other sectors has to be contribute, but in our case, we very much focused on how real estate sector can support to economic revival. So the idea is that extraordinary economic challenges and many unforeseen trials, Sri Lanka's overall real estate market is still resilient and has started to bounce back from the downturn. So recent past, the last quarter, the publication made by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. So Sri Lankan real estate market, certain price indexes, especially the asking price indexes for lands, houses, and not only that, condominiums are gradually moving up. So that means it's give a green light to Sri Lankan economy. The real estate sector contribute for the economic revival. So with that, our $1 million question. The question is how a real estate sector can contribute to economic revival. Or in other words, our main theme, how can real estate sector contribute to overcome the economic crisis in Sri Lanka? So I have 4 distinguished panel members. They are expert in their area, especially real estate development, regulation, construction, not only that in the academic sector, the valuation, they are expert in those areas. So I believe that we can have a cross-talk each other and bring a policy ideas to revive the economy of Sri Lanka. So let's move forward to the main discussion. So before that, I would like to introduce us one house rule. Thus that we will open up the Q&A session after the 3rd round. So basic idea is that we have 3 rounds. First, we will have the ice-breaking discussion. So then we will go to the short-term and mid-term and long-term solution for what we can bring from the real estate sector to the economic revival. And finally, we will come summing up session. So once the 2nd round call off, we will go for a open forum discussion where you can post your question. you have two options. One is Zoom chat box. So you can use Zoom chat box, or else if you are not in a position to just use the Zoom chat box, you can use the WhatsApp as well. The number is given, just WhatsApp. So we can select question for forum as well. So with that, I would like to start our discussion. I will kick off the session. First, I would like to start from Mr. Megha Kularatne. Mr. Megha, now you are a representative from the construction industry, and we learned that we evidence that construction industry, a pivotal cog of the economy, is in a dire strait due to the especially important cost, especially the construction material prices has been triggered up, and because of the weak rupee, and we had issue of the labor, rise in labor cost, and so on and so forth. So on this backset, can you briefly explain the current situation of the construction industry of Sri Lanka? What happened and what is happening?
So, thank you, Dr. Pratap. So I think just to go back in history, not too far, but after the Oslo period, there was a drastic growth of the construction sector. I think since from 2010 to 2016 or so, it grew nearly by 10% year on year, more than even the GDP of the country. Since 2016 to 18, it grew lesser amount, but after the pandemic, and especially after the East attacks and pandemic, there has been negative growth in the sector as well. Having said that, during the period from 2010 to during the last decade, if you speak generally, the technical capacity of the construction sector, as well as the overall financial and other capacity to do more work, large scale work, as well as get into more technically complex work, has increased. Thereby, I think the sector has improved a lot when compared to maybe early 2000 or in the 90s. So within this backdrop, I think if you take the last 3 years, the sector has had a very difficult time, especially with decreased government investment. Most of the work in the local construction sector, primarily 60 to 70% of the workload is from the government investment, government infrastructure. This has gone down drastically, as well as private investment after the East attacks during the pandemic. Private investment, especially real estate development and so on, has come down as well. So added to this, I think in this year, the biggest shock was the coming down of the dollar, so the depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee, which created a huge inflation factor, which has been beyond the level that the industry could manage with. I think this is true for other industries as well. So if you relate this backdrop into the real estate sector, since I'm going first, I thought of giving a brief overview of the sector. So if you take the real estate sector in Sri Lanka, primarily, I think there are four major categories. First one is residential sector, residential housing, that is condominiums, as well as gated communities and so on. Second one is commercial office category. Third one is commercial retail. And the last one is, of course, land, bare land or sort of plotted land market. I think out of these four categories, the commercial office and the commercial retail has been hit the hardest due to the recent events. Then I did some research, and I think I picked up 5 numbers, which I think will frame this whole topic so that you can understand what has been going on in the last few years. So if you take the growth of the market, real estate market, in 2010, the number of apartments, condominiums were about 2,300. And by 2024, including the projects that are ongoing and that has been developed and started, there will be 26,000 apartments in Sri Lanka by the year 2024. This is almost a 10-fold increase during the last 10 years. And out of this, 17,500 apartments have been completed, and the balance to be completed in the next 3 years. So I think if you take the history of the residential condominium market, there's been a rapid growth from 1997, which was, I think, the first apartment came into life. And from 2010 to now, the numbers have nearly gone up by 10 times. So that's the first number. The second one is, out of the 26,000 apartments in the market, there's an absorption rate of nearly 87%. So only 13% of the apartments have not been sold as of today. I think this shows, I think Dr. Pratap mentioned the fact that the market is resilient. So this maybe goes to show that despite the challenges, there is a high absorption rate, relatively speaking. And also maybe there's a problem in terms of which we'll go into next in the discussion stage. Maybe in terms of the supply side of the equation, there is a problem. There is a lack of supply compared to the demand. So only 13% unsold apartments as of now. Then the third number is if you take the condominium, high-end condominium market or tier 1 apartments, the average premium price is $250 in central Colombo, if you take average across the high-end apartments. And this, I think, if you analyze the other cities in the region, if you take Hong Kong, Singapore, Mumbai, Bangkok, Manila, Jakarta, even in India, this is much lower than the regional price of the regional market. And only cities like Hanoi, Dhaka, and Yangon are lower than this price. So this may be also, I think, indicates an opportunity we have in Sri Lanka to market high-end real estate. Then the fourth number is annual rental yields. Rental yields, despite the challenges from 2020 to 22, rental yields have maintained at a relatively reasonable level. It has gone up in 2021, but come down slightly in 2022. So this also maybe highlights the fact that there is some demand still existing. Then finally, coming into my sector, I think inflation is the biggest challenge we have at the moment. As I said, in 2010, the index, the building sector price index was at 500. In 2020, it was 850. In August 2021, it was 890. And by August 2022, it's come up to nearly 1,800. So nearly doubled within 1 year. That means 100% increase of construction commodities nearly one year period. So these are the main challenges we have at the moment. I think if you take real estate sector, there is the macroeconomic volatility and bad investment environment. Everyone is waiting and watching to invest in real estate. Then there is a supply side issue, not enough apartments in the market to satisfy the demand, especially in the medium to high medium category. And then increased construction costs, as I mentioned before. I think if you take the positive trends, in the medium to long run, I think the potential of Sri Lanka is still there to market it as a hub in the region. And therefore, I think that's one of the reasons fundamentally the demand is still there and the land value hasn't gone down and the apartment prices haven't come down. So we have to unlock this potential somehow. I think this is maybe one of the main points of today's discussion. So I think I will elaborate on some of these points in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Megha. Mr. Megha have the wonderful opening. And I would like to catch one of the salient idea that you put forward in your presentation or the discussion. That point, I'd like to start with Mr. Fernando. So Mr. Megha noted that there's a huge, that means the inflation, because of the inflation, the construction cost has been escalated rapidly. And by the time he also pointed out that rental values of the property is not that much. So there's a mismatch of the cost versus the value of the rental. Now, as a valuer, so my idea is that, so we are in a dead end. So we are in a dilemma, the market approach and the cost approach. So how we can focus on the market approach and the cost approach, because the two options will give a different value figures to the value of the market. So how will you tackle that issue?
Yes, Doctor. Now, as yes, Dr. Pratap. Now, as quite rightly Mr. Mega Kularatne indicated, there is a problem. The increasing cost has a problem mainly because it does not market at those increasing costs. There is a conflict between the market and the rising costs. Now, if we go to think deeply, why this conflict is, now one of the prominent outcomes of the current crisis in Sri Lanka is the high rate of inflation, now rising to record levels. Cost of living has gone up 2 to 3 fold or even more, leaving aside the income levels at the same. So with the same income, market participants are paying 2 to 3 times for their day-to-day living. Now, this brings about a purchasing power problem. Purchasing power is adversely affected because there is a shift from consumer from investment to consumer for essentials. So once they pay for their essential day-to-day living, the amount available for anyone for investment is less or nothing. So this creates a purchasing power problem. Purchasing power is adversely affected. That pushes down the value of real estate. That is one. Secondly, the other option to go for purchase is by way of a loan. The interest rates have skyrocketed now. And as a result, the cost of borrowing is very high and had gone to unacceptable and unaffordable levels. So another gate is closed for the purchaser of the real estate. So together with these two, the interest rates have created another problem to the real estate market. Now, with the rising of the interest rates, the banks are offering high rates of interest. The banks are offering very reliable and highly recognized banks are now offering rates like 20 to 22% per annum for short-term deposits of 3 months, 6 months, or 10 months. So the real estate investor is diverted to another direction. Now, one thing, he is in the midst of an uncertainty. What is going to happen tomorrow to the money that I am going to invest in the real estate? On the other hand, there is another option, another investment vehicle that offers high rate of interest in a very safe deposit with recognized banks. So anyone who wants to, who has the money to invest will have a second thought. Why not I invest in a bank and then wait for some time until the problem, until the crisis comes to an end or shows signs of terminating and improving. And while he waits, his funds that he has for investment keeps on growing at a fairly high rate. So that also discourages people to invest in real estate, which has another downward push in the demand in the real estate. Then apart from those two, there is another very severe blow on the real estate market. That is the rental value. The rental values have come down tremendously during the past. Now, if you look at properties in Colombo, if you go down Bullis Road or Gore Road or Aredimal Mawata, you will find so many commercial properties in vacant possession. You will see so many boards to let or lease.
Now, why is this? Now there is a restriction on imports. When there is a restriction on imports, the shops, what are they going to sell? Now recently, about 2 weeks back, I heard the news item saying that about 90% of the beauty salons are closing down because they don't have products to perform. To do their business, they don't have products. Then also what happens to people who are dealing in, say, cell phones and cell phone accessories? What are they going to sell? Are they going to just pay a rent and be there without selling anything? So in that case, what will happen to these shops in Unity Plaza? Also, what will happen to these big showrooms who are selling televisions, sound setups? So they will have no business. So this has a tremendous effect, downward trend in the rental value. Also, there is another factor which started from 2020 with the pandemic situation. People were stuck at home and they started working from home. Children started schooling online. Even we had all our meetings on Zoom platforms, and that reduced the demand for rental space. So with that, overall, the rental demand has come down in the market. When the rental demand is down, the problem is, as Mr. Megha Kularatne said, the high cost that is involved in construction, there is no justification of a rent, of a return. The high value, if it is to have a high value, there should be a justification of rent, a justification of a reasonable return, which is not there. So with all this, we experience that there is a major conflict between the rising cost of construction and the values. The values are coming down, the rising cost, construction cost is going up. But of course, having said that, there are certain exceptions on certain selected sectors of the real estate. That is, there are certain, say, apartments which are bought by expatriates and they pay in foreign currency. And for example, if they were paying $50,000 to buy an apartment, now they have to pay $30,000. So that way, in certain areas, there is a upward trend, but that is only on selected. Also on BOI factories who are on the export drive, they get their turnover in dollars. Converted to Sri Lankan rupees, they get a very much higher income than before. Their turnover has gone up. So those are exceptions. So we have to consider all this in the light of this crisis and see how we can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. And now I'd like to bring you the regulator's perspective, Mr. Lalit Vijayaratne from Urban Development Authority. Mr. Vijayaratne, the Urban Development Authority play a role of regulator, and to a certain extent the UDA has the role of developer as well. So how you read these macroeconomic changes in the market, and what are the impacts to the real estate industry?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. Actually, I have to simplify this question, how we does work as a planning authority, regulator, and second part is we are also a real estate developer, likewise other private companies. Simply, I am starting from the planning. The planning means, urban planning means live, work, and play. For all these three factors, we need lands. Land has two factors. The price will be, or land use depend on natural reasons and regulatory reasons. If there is a forest sensitive area or low marshy area, we can't use as real estate lands. On other hand, from our development plans, zoning regulation, and so many regulation we have put in certain areas, we are saying in this area you can construct on 50% or 65% or 80%. Depend on these two factors, land prices are differ. It may be change place to place. Not only that, from our development plan and zoning, we are deciding in which area we will allow to construct much more things, or which area we are going to restrict. As an example, in Colombo 7 Independence Square area, we are not giving construct so much. If they are at a good value, that's a good respective area, but land value may be restricted because of the regulations. In some other areas, think about Kolpiti, Bambalapiti, Sea Beach area. So recently we have opened this sea road. Therefore, the land value of these areas rise 203,000% than before. What I want to emphasize here, the UDA as a regulatory body, we are maintaining the land prices in certain areas. The second part of the UDA role is we are working as a real estate developer, likewise other developers. But there is some difference between these people and us. We have powers to acquire the lands and vest in the lands. We can hold the lands, we can take the lands, we can hold the lands, and we can sell the lands or property. We can do nationally or internationally investment or whatever so many facilitators have given to the UDA. In addition, UDA is the government real estate developer. The many people does not know about that one. We are not simply a real estate developer. We are doing on behalf of the government. And end of the day, all the profits take into the treasury. At the moment, we are doing some mixed development, housing, and so many kind of developments. But the difference between the private sector and government sector, the private sector intention is the profit making. That's correct. There's nothing wrong with that one. But we have to do some social works also. We have a responsibility to give residential housing for low-income people and middle-income people also. Now we will come into the challenges. What is the challenge? The recent past, before 10-15 years, the tsunami came into the Sri Lanka. Then what happened? The terrorist attack, the Easter attack. After that, the pandemic came for 2 years, 2019-2020. Everybody knows, everybody faced on this problem. As a result of these two terrorist attack and pandemic, finally we have to face that economic crisis, especially from 2021. Why? What is the reason behind that? Because of our economy is not so strong in each ways. That is not the topic to discuss on this forum. Because of these economic crises, UDA also faced that real estate development problems as Mega described. I'm not going to describe these things. The same as we have to face all these problems. On a regulatory way, what can we do for this one? Actually, regulatory wise, for short period, we can't do anything. We are preparing development plans for 10-year period or more than 10-year time. Therefore, the regulation cannot be changed, but we can give some relaxations. Within the regulation, we have decided give some relaxation. I will explain these things in next round. As a real estate developer, at present, the construction material prices also very high. Nowadays, the bank interest also about 20 to 30%. And we know the recently government said some taxes are going to impose about 15% VAT for property development. All these factors are adversely affect to the construction industry. UDA also suffering this problem heavily. Therefore, we have decided to give so many concessions and so many things to the people who bought the housing from the UDA or people who are going to buy the lands from the UDA. I will explain in next round. But the thing is, the problem is people, the low income and middle income people. Those are the innocent category, and I think it's very difficult to give a solution for them because of the increase of this cost effect. Then I will stop now. I will explain.
Thank you,
in
Mr.
seconds.
Lalit. So generally, we have no argument on principle of ladies first. But Madam, I would like to bring you on board as the last panelist. So first of all, I would like to, I beg your pardon on this. But the rationale is that I want to bring you at the end to learn from the holistic perspective on this matter. So here we had a discussion on the construction side, and the other end we had a discussion on the valuation side, the regulator as a developers discipline, we had the discussion. So the expectation is that if you can bring a academic perspective or the academic flavor to this discussion, what was happened or what is happening right now, it will be a suitable platform, or it will be a proper platform for the next level discussion. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pratap. Thank you, Pratap. In this discussion, I would like to continue with some economic things. In any country, we have natural environment as well as man-made environment. In natural environment and man-made environment or artificial environment connected with humans. In that way, we face different economic problems. In the economics say that there are three causes of economic problems: scarcity of resources, unlimited human wants, and alternative uses. When we are balancing economies, we have to consider all these three things. Scarcity of resources, we connected with unlimited human wants through alternative uses. Then when balancing those three, within the country, world economic conditions are changed. In any country face some different time periods due to different reasons, different time periods, different countries face some economic recessions. Then fluctuation of economy between period of expansion is called economic growth. Then and contraction means economic recession. Now in this economic crisis situation, when the economy has a slowdown of economic activities due to financial bank crisis, inflation, currency crashes, etc. Time to time, world face some economic crisis. We focus mostly on real estate sector. Then real estate sector is a critical driver of economic growth in any country. Therefore, it is the one of the major arm of the economies, and collapses this sector help to huge economic crisis. Now, you can remember that in 2009, there are great recession in the US economy. Then US declared in 2007 to officially declared 2007 to 2009 is the recession period. In the reason is the economic recession is collapse of the housing market. It helped due to low interest rates, easy credit, insufficient regulation, and toxic supreme mortgages. Then this financial crisis led to great recession and economic crisis in the country, and it also affect to all over the world. Now in US, GDP fell 4.3 in peak in 2009, and unemployment rate increased 5% to 10% within 2 years. Then that effect also connected with all over the world, and Asian countries also face this situation at significantly 2.4% in the economic growth of the 2.4 in 2009 in developing countries also. But in 52 countries experiencing decline this per capita income. This is 2009 situation. But in now what happened? Now 2019, small virus shut down all over the world. That also helped to create economic crisis in the world. And Sri Lanka also faced that situation. In how to affect COVID-19 pandemic in real estate world, all three panelists discuss about that. Then mainly Mr. Mega mentioned that it rise construction cost, and there is a fallback of construction industry. Then Mr. Ajit mentioned that it's effect to the property market and property prices. And also rental values. And then Mr. Vijayaratna mentioned about how it affect to real estate constructions and regulatory things in as a regulatory body. Then this is in the real estate sector. Now we want to get some the roadmap to how to affect this economic crisis in the economy, and also what is the role of real estate sector. Then how we connect those things in the role of real estate sector. In Sri Lanka is the small country. In our today we have a huge economic crisis. How we manage this economic crisis through real estate sector? What is the role of real estate sector? We have to discuss. Then in 2009 recession, then European real estate sector also collapsed. But in 2014, they again improve their real estate sector, and approximately 10% of European economy depend on the real estate sector. But in after COVID-19, in India, real estate sector also face some problem. But India real estate sector is the second highest employment generator after the agricultural sector. Therefore, they given some incentives and they reduce capital gain tax and so many incentives, tax incentives they given, and now their real estate sector is slowly increasing. But in Bangladesh and Malaysia also highly depend on the real estate sector, and but their real estate sectors also now improving with influence of their economy, country, some budget lines and other things in the country. Then our problem is how what is our role in the real estate sector for overcome this economic crisis. Then next session, we discuss about what are the short-term and long-term strategies to overcome this crisis, economic crisis in the Sri Lanka.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I believe that we had a good opening. The economic crisis has been explained by the 4 panel members in the perspective of the construction, real estate, development, planning, as well as valuation perspective. So we had a multifaceted issues within the real estate sector, but the green light is that there is a possibility. So we can move forward, move forward the real estate sector will support for the economic revival. So before moving to the second round, again, I would like to highlight my $1,000,000 question. How Sri Lanka can move forward amidst economic crisis, the role of real estate industry or the role of real estate sector. So in that sense, I again like to focus with the planning perspective. So first, I would like to kick off with Mr. Lalit Wijeyaratne. So can you read, can you explain the short term, the plan, or the long, as well as the long term plan from a real estate perspective? What kind of plans can you propose from the regulator perspective?
Yeah, I will talk about short-term solutions first. Actually, earlier, as I said, UDA has regulatory power to maintain or decide the land prices. With that perspective, and when we talk about last pandemic period, we got some advantages. Think about even today, many people are engaging in this event with Zoom. Therefore, we can save some fuel cost and some other transport cost and so many other things. Nowadays, our office and everybody adapt into that Zoom platform and some other ways. Likewise, taking with that advantages, UDA design a one-stop unit to approve the building plans. The one of the major reason to not to come in the foreign investors into Sri Lanka is that the complexity of the planning approval. Not only from us, more than 10 to 15 agencies will have to issue their clearances for one approval. Sometimes we have seen many investors came into Sri Lanka and within 2 weeks they are going back and they are not coming. There are so many alternative countries are there to invest. With that pandemic period, we have so much time to study and doing many things. We have designed a one-stop shop for planning approval at one point. We are starting that one from November 10th. By this system, we are expecting attracting some more investment on real estate market. And another thing is we have so many regulations. Sometimes it's very difficult to understand the general public. Even sometimes UDA people can't understand these regulations, and our people will define in different way in different places. We are after we studied very carefully, we have prepared good set of regulations last year that called 2021-7 regulations. And the good thing is now we are giving these regulations to everybody. If somebody asks me now, I will WhatsApp all the regulations. What has happened in the previously, everybody keep in their pocket. Nobody knows the regulation. If somebody comes to our officer, he will tell, yeah, I will do for you, but he's not telling what are the regulations. Nowadays, not like that. Everybody should understand the country's regulations, not only the UDA regulation and everything. What I said, these things to this economic crisis should responsible for everybody, not only the politician, higher officials and officers. We have seen the previously that fuel lines, how does that three-wheeler drivers and all other people have their behavior. Therefore, we are talking about the transparency of our planning agency. Likewise, all other agencies should be very transparent. If there is a good transparency, nobody can cheat the people or nobody can do something behind the screen. That's our one strategy to come out from this economic crisis. As a real estate developer, what we have done, we temporarily stop all the construction. That's the only way we have to face that economic crisis, because it's very difficult to calculate the prices to buy the materials, and we didn't have any mechanism to project the future values for the housing. At the moment, we have stopped all the construction, and one by one now we have to decide to start this project. From next month, we are going to start 2 projects. All other ones also we will time by time we will start. And another thing is we are refunding the money as requested by the client. There's many people got refund because of the interest rate is very high nowadays. The interest rates are 20 to 30%. The many people bought the housing not for their users. They purchased these houses for investment purpose. Nowadays, the people thinking that banking interest rate is much more profitable than the property market. Another strategy UDA using the pricing in dollar price with 10% concessions. We are selling these properties and houses in dollar price. Now we have already opened that accounts and we already published this one. Many number of people interested to buy our houses and properties expending dollars. And especially the real estate market, the past 2-3 months, it was very difficult to sell this land on the market on the proper way. As a government institute, we have to follow so many rules and regulations, but there were no parties came into this market internationally or nationally. Recently, the UDA has changed this regulation, relax the regulations. As an example, previously we are checking their source of money, where is this money is coming, and has he engaged in real estate market, and previous experience are there. After removing this regulation, some developers has came into the UD and they purchased the land, but unfortunately they are not investing after purchase the land. They are keep as a property for the future investment. Maybe after we are expecting the price will reduce within next 3 or 6 months. Sometimes they will start their projects after that time. Finally, we have introduced so many schemes. Normally, we are giving 99 years, 66 years, 50 years lease for the people. Nowadays, the UD has advertised UDA doing public-private partnerships with that clients. UDA giving the lands, we are the shareholder for the land price, and investor should invest some amount from their own money. This is the strategies what we are doing as short-term solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Lalit. Now, the discussion, again, it's come to the next level. At the first round, Mr. Mega, you have highlighted that negative shock of the aftermath of the COVID-19 and the economic crisis. Also, I noticed that Mr. Jayewardenepura also pointed that short-term remedies such as pricing at the dollar rate and deregulation of certain policies or the regulations of the UD and so on and so forth. From the construction point of view, to support for the economic growth, how you can propose short-term solution? What type of solutions can you bring forward?
Yes, Doctor. So short term, I think from a construction perspective, first one, if you tackle the cost of construction, this is a difficult topic because if you analyze how cost of construction is made up of, generally it's 60 to 65% materials, 15 to 20% machinery, and another 10 to 15% manpower. So the primary cost is in materials, and most of our materials relating to especially condominiums and other real estate products are largely imported, from steel to other, especially building services and some specialized items, which entail a large amount of this 60 to 65% of the cost. So with the depreciation of the rupee, this element has gone up by an amount which which the industry has been unable to absorb. So I think in the previous session, I saw that there were some lessons imparted from the Australian industry, and those are applicable maybe to our labor and our machinery industries, where I think we can further improve some of the aspects and bring about more efficient production mechanisms, more discipline, and and increase our productivity. So from this, if we achieve some level of improvement, there is a cost saving, but this is still limited because that is coming from the 30 to 35% of the cost. And even if you achieve a 20% increase in productivity, this only translates to roughly say 5 to 6% of the cost being improved. So the main item to tackle is the materials and especially imports. And for this, I think certain aspect is beyond the cost, beyond the market participants of the industry. And the government has to also step in and maybe think about changing some of the regulations around imports. I think recently they have introduced a gazette on gazette banning some of the specialized import materials which are non-essential. Of course, this is the need of the hour. We understand that compared to some of the more basic and essential needs of the country at the moment. But progressively, I think this has to be relaxed, especially for strategically developed real estate investments. And also, if we streamline the taxation and the taxation around imported items, I think this cost can be brought down. So this is again a balance, I think, between the fiscal side of the income generated by the government through taxation, as well as driving economic growth through industry like real estate. So that's number one in terms of cost. Then number two, I think in terms of our product, I think this is the main thing I want to highlight here, is that if you take our region or the world, even our region, I think our real estate product is still at a not a very advanced level. Even we have a lot of tier 1 high-end apartments. Even in those, I think our design, our fit for purpose, and our cost efficiencies can be drastically improved. I think I'll give you an example. Now, one of the main reasons now, naturally, the affordability of Sri Lankans have not risen over the last few years. It has come down due to the depreciation of the rupee. And due to this, I think the person who was able to afford 1,600 square meter apartment can only maybe now afford an 800 or 1,000 square feet apartment. So this has created a change in expectation. So how do we as developers manage this? I think we have to improve our design. Now, certain designs, if you analyze countries like Japan or USA, there are cities with very limited land, where the land is very expensive. But then they also have apartments which we would call typically very small, but the design is done in such a way where you don't feel the space restrictions, where the positioning of the windows, the layouts, and the doors, and how the airflow through the building. So all these aspects, I think we have to study and benchmark the best in class in the world, and try to take these lessons back home. I think this is especially relevant to tier 1 and tier 2 condominium apartments in Sri Lanka, which can also be a real driver in trying to restart or reignite the real estate sector. So that's number two. Then if you take the construction industry, of course, I think we have now developed our know-how to do high rises. Most of the current high-rise buildings in Sri Lanka, including some of the tallest buildings, are done by local construction contractors. And we have done green buildings also, which are class-leading, world-leading green buildings in Sri Lanka. This is also a positive point. I think we have to continue on this. A Green Building Council was set up in 2009. And I think up to now, really 100 buildings have been certified through this Green Building Council. This certification, Sri Lanka Green Building Rating, has been developed sort of in line with the LEED Platinum's LEED US LEED standards. So that is a positive thing. And similarly, we have to, I think, further improve our technology in terms of what is the best in class in the world and try to apply them. Of course, there are indigenous factors, there are local factors, and apply it to suit our industry. And I think through those mechanisms, we can see, I think in the short term, we can try to regain some momentum or rebuild some momentum in the sector.
Yeah, quick question, Mr. Mega. Now you noted that in your discussion, the point, one thing is that the redesign or the think about the out of box and go for a new design where we can feel that even though it is a small house, it's not feel to the owner or the user. Another way, another question, how this now, since the prices has been escalated in a very heightened manner. How you balance the rest of the work? Now, maybe you had already project, there are a lot of projects already started. So what kind of economic solution that you bring forward?
I think the projects which are already started, the solutions are limited. The developers will have to stay afloat in order to complete and make the projects viable for them. So a part of this cost has to naturally transfer to the buyers. I think this has been happening in the last few years. A lot of the developers I know have been renegotiating with the buyers, who have already paid some part of the cost of the apartment. But then this is, of course, is a negotiation, and I think most developers have found solution through this. Then, of course, if you take look, your profit margins will go down, but then it's a matter of survival and trying to somehow make the market work at this current time. Apart, yes.
Yeah. I'm Sajid Fernando. We had a discussion on the uncertainty. So one way it's the cost is escalating, another way rental values is going down. So this creates the concept of uncertainty, and maybe there's a material uncertainty in the valuation as well. So especially when it's come to the RICS, so the VPGA 10 RICS guideline noted that you have to declare the uncertainty in valuation and all. Now, can you explain how valuation professionals, the valuers, move forward in this kind of uncertainty?
Yes, doctor. Now, to start with, I would like to identify what these uncertainties are. Now, at this crisis, we are in the midst of a crisis. Now, in the midst of a crisis, definitely uncertainty creeps into the market. Now, when uncertainty creeps into the market, there is a problem. It creates an impact on the decision makers. The decision makers have a problem in deciding or getting advice as to what the actual price is. Now, let's take what these uncertainties are. To start with, there is a data uncertainty. You call it input uncertainty also. Now, why there is input uncertainty when there is a crisis? We all know that real estate anyway has a slow potential market. Real estate is a long-term investment, and people take time to go through a transaction, and it's slow. And because of this slow potential in the market, we find difficult to find proper unreliable data in the market, especially when there is a crisis. As we are depending on historic data, the historic data that we take during the crisis may have not been influenced by the crisis because it's taken at a time before the crisis. So that we are taking and adopting during the crisis, we are not deriving at the right value. So this is a problem, and this slow operational system of the real estate is further worsened at a time of high inflation. Why is that? People consider real estate as a hedge against inflation. They consider real estate as a buffer to protect their wealth during an inflation. They keep it as a long-term store of value to fight against the inflation and recover a higher price at the end of the crisis. So because of that, the speed of transaction is further slowed down, creating a further difficulty in obtaining proper data in the market. So when there's a problem in getting reliable information from the market, and we take inputs and plug it into different models, that has another problem that leads to model uncertainty, because different models use different data inputs, which are subject to different degrees of uncertainty. So when we are using data subject to different levels of uncertainty and plug it into different models, the value we derived at in different models, the difference of that value expands. There is a bigger difference in one model to the other model. So because of that, we come to a model uncertainty. Now, what happens when there is a model uncertainty? We walk into a valuation uncertainty. What is valuation uncertainty? Valuation uncertainty is the possibility of the value we derived at could change on a subsequent sale of the same property at the same time under the same economic conditions. So this valuation uncertainty creates a problem to the decision makers, because they can't think of they can't capture the actual value in an uncertain time. During a crisis, this is a major difficulty. So what I see is the value especially, we have to pick up the right inputs and see how and to what degree they are subject to uncertainty, and use it in the model that is most suitable for those inputs. Now, for example, at a rising cost of construction, the cost method of valuation goes more and more outdated, because the cost method of valuation itself says that the value derived at in the cost model has to be justified by a reasonable return on the investment. So where is this return? The rentals have gone down and the cost is high, but there is no justification on the return of investment. So this creates a major problem, and we have to see how best we could sort out this problem as professionals and derived at the most correct value and capture the right value to the best possible manner in our valuations. So as I said, there is a data uncertainty which leads to a model uncertainty. Model uncertainty leads to a valuation uncertainty. Now, if we are to basically see how we are going to tackle this problem and minimize this difference in within the uncertainty, what I would say is we have to feel the pulse of the market participants, because the value is not the cost. Value is derived by the behavior of the market participants in response to the high cost of construction as well as other economic factors in the market. We have to consider both. Now, as I said in the ice-breaking session, there are other problems like inflation. People have no money to go for real estate. There is a decrease in the purchasing power. So likewise, there is a problem in the market. So we have to identify the problem and identify how best we could sort this problem out, which I will come to in greater depth at my second session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ajit Fernando. Now again, I would like to move to Professor Padma Veerakon. Now, here I would like to bring the discussion into a different platform. Now, when it comes to the economic crisis and the real estate crisis, we had a world-class experience. For example, in 1991, economic crisis in India. So the India had the same issue, the foreign currency crisis, and they had the balance of payment issue in 1991. The same as it's a replica of the Sri Lankan situation. Now they, even though they had a issue, they quickly they move forward and they bring to the same level after 2 or 3 year economic fiscal policies. And another example that we can put forward is the real estate bubble where happened in US and later on in tiger countries like Singapore and Malaysia. Madam, can you propose certain level of the short term as well as the long term solutions in an academic perspective? What are the tested model that we have throughout the world in this question, for this question?
Yes, Pratap. In normally, all of you know, there is a real estate sector contribute major things in the economy of the country. Therefore, we have to consider real estate in this economic crisis. What is the role of real estate? In short term, how we overcome economic crisis in short term. What is the role of real estate in related to the short term strategies? Actually in the world situation, in time to time, there is a crisis in mostly in third world countries. I think we cannot apply it in Western countries situation, but in third Asian countries situation, in Malaysia, Singapore, they also face that type of economic crisis. At that time, their governments given more tax incentives for develop real estate. But problem is without tax incentives, how we upgrade this real estate sector. Then normally there are 4 factors, 4 drivers connected with real estate market. In demographic, information about potential buyers, interest rate, impact the price and demand of real estate. The economy, real estate prices often flow the cycle of economy. Then government policies and subsidies that can boost or hinder demand for real estate. Those are the main drives in the real estate market. Then what are the short-term strategies in our country point of view? Now all of you know. Now there are more than half of the people living in urban areas in the world. Then in some countries it is 80%, some countries 60%. In Asian countries also more than 50% people living in urban areas. It is urbanization is high. In our country, our urbanization we cannot predict because as the official definition, our urbanization is 18%. It is not an actual situation. Therefore, Urban Development Authority declared urban areas, and those declared urban areas identified as a urban area for preparation of development plans. Then according to UDA, there are 24 municipal councils, 41 urban councils. In official definition, urban areas are 24 urban councils and 41 municipal 24 municipal councils and 41 urban councils. But apart from that, UD add another Pradesh Sabha 207 Pradesh Sabha areas as a urban development areas. Then now our urbanization is, if we consider those urban development areas, our urbanization rate is high. But when we consider the real estate in our country, it is different than other countries, because now there is a trend to move people from urban to surrounding areas. People don't like to live in high urbanized areas, but they prefer to go outside areas. Then most probably they like to move to fringe areas. Then we have to identify our demand in short terms. As a short term strategies, we can consider those designated urban areas and what are the main demand for real estate in designated urban areas, and we can give some incentives to people to develop some real estate in local level. Now we have to consider local level real estate. Then they sometimes they are unable to attract foreign investment. Then UDA try to attract some foreign investment through land and other real estate. But in the local level real estate, we have to consider. Then in the most Asian countries in the within this crisis situation, they use market segmentation. They identified different markets. In the residential real, they define residential real estate, office real estate, retail, hospitality, industrial, like that. They differentiate real estate and they identified those real estate in each areas. They did identify some possibilities to develop real estate in different areas. Then we can use that strategy to adapt our development of our real estate sector. Then I think UDA urban, we can incorporate those things, identification of these new real estates in the UDA local authorities development plan preparation. Then in each local areas connected with some universities are in each areas, and government universities as well as private universities, then we can conduct some research and innovation connected with those universities to identify possible real estate things. Then at that time, the universities connected with universities, local authorities can develop small research about identification of real estate development and what are the opportunities. Then we do research in identify opportunities in the real estate. Then also the housing, residential real estate, main problem is affordability, housing affordability. Then we can do research related to affordability of different types of real estate. Then this is in the valuation side. In our main problem is not database. Then we don't have proper databases. In Poland experience, in the COVID period, they also not a proper database. Then after COVID pandemic, they publish valuation data in electronic form. Then therefore, valuers able to view sales, transaction and property data through public institutions website. Now this also help to identify values and other things and share some information about land and buildings in the short-term period. Now these are the short-term strategies we have to identify, develop our real estate sector, and the tax incentives are the most preferable things to upgrade the real estate sector. But in our country situation, I think we are unable to access it. In India, they reduce capital gain tax and other property taxes, but we cannot achieve that type of things. Therefore, we have to think to reorganize and think about urban areas and how we connect local real estate and how we develop local real estate connected with those urban areas. In next session, I discuss what are the long-term effects.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, I would like to open the discussion to the forum. So if you have any questions, you can use the Zoom chat box or the WhatsApp number directly. So we can take these questions to the panel. So I received a few questions right now. We'll start it from valuation perspective. The first question, it's about the value of real estate in Sri Lanka. The question is right. I read the question. Value of the real estate in Sri Lanka have continued to rise irrespective of the economic turbulences. Is there a risk of real estate bubble in Sri Lanka as it is forecasted in many other countries? Now, I think that the bottom line of the question is that there's a rising prices of the value of the real estate, the one way, and does it directed to the real estate bubble in Sri Lanka?
Well, this question was there all the time, even during 2008. The prices came up until 2008 or end of 2007, where we started, where we experienced the global recession or the global financial debacle. The prices kept on shooting up. Everybody was thinking, now where is this going to burst? But it never happened. When the financial crisis came, in 2008, the global crisis came. What happened in Sri Lanka? Maybe prices went down in other countries in USA or Australia. But due to some reasons I have already said before, the Sri Lankan investor did not go for a panic sale, did not give it at a low price. We never experienced prices coming down except for few cases where they had a liquidity problem. But in general, prices did not come down. Prices remained the same. And what happened during the crisis was the market stagnated. The market stagnated, it didn't go up, it didn't go down, and remained until the global recession ended in somewhere around 2009. After which, now those who were thinking of a burst of a bubble, it didn't happen. It still kept on increasing. From 2010 onwards, we experienced that values were going up again. And
now your argument is that even though the issue is there won't be much of speculative investors. That means they keep the real estate or the properties and they are not put it in the market, so the price will not go down.
Very correct, very correct. They don't sell it, but they keep it until the recession ends up one day. And then they always, our past experience show that they have always got a better price. They have got, they were rewarded for holding it after the crisis.
Adding to that, the answer, what will happen if the property has been financed by the mortgage in such a situation? Can the purchaser bear the increase of the interest rate?
No, there is a problem. When we value for mortgage purposes, the main thing is we have to see what the for sale value is. I would rather call it more than for sale value. I would call it the market value under restricted conditions. You have not enough. You are not got enough time to advertise and take across to all the interested buyers that this property is available for sale. So The time is restricted and it is the market value under restricted conditions. So what we can do is, as professional valuers, when we value a property, we have to see the purpose for which we value it. Now, if it is for mortgage purposes, the main requirement of the use of the valuation is to recover his money, and he gives the quantum of money against the collateral according to the value which we give them. So what we can do is, we will have to definitely increase the span between the market value and the for sale value.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. Now I'd like to move with Mr. Vijayaratna. The question is all about the social needs and the profit maximization. I read the question: what would be the UDA role as developer to satisfy social needs as housing while making profit from making private investment? So, so being the regulator and being the developer, is there any conflict of interest?
Yeah, it should be understand like this. UDA doing housing in different types. The first one is we are doing low income housing for urban regeneration housing. Those houses are given free of charge. We are taking a plot of land and we have a special method to develop these lands and totally giving free of charge. And recent past, we started a program houses giving for middle income categories, especially for professionals. Think about the teachers, newly appointed doctors, or whatever professionals. For those categories, we are offering houses without having a profit. Discuss with contractors and other sectors. We have signed agreement without getting a profit. This is the second part. The third one is we are doing some luxury housings. Especially we are doing one project in Borella and Viatpur. Those two projects are the luxury projects only expecting profits. I think that's the answer.
Yeah. And one suggestion as well. Now, you already, the UDA as a developer very much focused on real estate sector, especially on housing. Why is there any possibility to you to move to the industrial development, which will which might support for the economic the revival of the economic crisis? Any idea on that?
Actually, I think the housing sector is much more popular. We are doing so much real estate development starting from the UDA 1978. In 1980, UDA, the developer of the Achulon Square, you know, the World Trade Center, Bank of Ceylon, Hilton area developed by the UDA at that time. Likewise, recently, the Tripoli market converted into the knowledge-based business place. And very recently, we got 500 acres from Horana. Nowadays, we are developing some infrastructure and giving many industries. Not only that, in Hambantota, nowadays we have allocated 2,000 acres for industrial development, and many number of some other sites also have identified for industrial development.
My next question would goes to Mr. Mega. Now, in your discussion, you noted that the application of the technology as a short-term strategy to overcome this crisis. Now, when it's come to the technology is also create a high cost at the end of the day. In such a in inflationary situation, would it be possible to apply technology?
I think so in the short term, I think it's maybe difficult. What I meant more was improve the productivity and productivity of our manpower, machinery, and our planning, our our overall wastage, that type of thing. But if you take answer your question about technology, I think it's a more medium-term plan with the industry has to adapt. If you take developed countries like Singapore and China and even Japan, Australia, they have moved on to prefabricated buildings. Now they have moved from prefabricated buildings into modular buildings where you build all these apartments in a factory building and basically assemble on site. So I think this type of thing can create economies of scale and drastically bring down costs. But as a country, we are not at the industrial development, the stage of industrial development in order to be able to do that. But I think at least if we start from prefabricating certain elements, big elements in our industry using in the building using technology, we can slowly go towards that. If you take India, most of their, I think, mid-income, low to mid-income housing is done through prefabricated buildings, so more and more. So this is an area I think we should look at. Obviously, the demand and the pricing pricing is not in the market, is not at a stage where we have the demand to go invest in such manufacturing technology, but it's an area that we can look at in the medium term.
Yeah, adding to your answer, now one way of minimizing the issues is that proper R&D on low cost material, low cost manufacturing material, or the alternative material for imports. Any stance on this, or any move forward on this matter? Any kind of a solution?
Yeah, I think my view is generally that we as an industry, we are not advanced enough to go into this, because if you take a real estate product, if you're using alternative materials, recycled materials, something which has not been done before, this has to be really at a level where you know that the economies of scale are there to bring down the cost, plus the material qualities have to be there, durable, has to be tried and tested. So the countries which have been able to do that are in countries which are good in industrialization, which are developed, which have had the technology to support this and the R&D. I'm not saying no, but I just feel that some of the experiments we have done in small scale, I know in the industry have not been successful generally, especially if you're taking high-end real estate, tier 1, tier 2, high rises, that the material quality, the build quality, all of these cannot be experiments. These are tried and tested methods in the world. I think this there has to be a longer learning curve in order to adapt some of these alternative materials, recycled materials, and so on. That's my view.
This next question goes to Mr. Achit Fernando. The question is that about rental market and the investment method of valuation and the cost method or the contractor's test method. So the bottom line of the question is that what would be the approximate margin of error if income and cost approaches used to value the same property? Any benchmark on that?
You can't think of a benchmark like that, but according to what I have already said, the cost method of valuation is becoming more and more unreliable now. When I say more and more unreliable, I would say it has come to a stage that we can't depend at all in the cost method of valuation. If we go through all what we discuss at this forum, from the beginning, from what Mr. Megakularatna said, the high cost of construction, and if you take those cost of construction and add it to the land value and go by the cost of construction, you go wrong, completely wrong. So we will have to use the correct model at this time of a crisis. So investment method of valuation, I would say it is more reliable provided that we properly adjust the data that we pick up. We have to adjust it to suit the current economic state and see how best we could use well-adjusted, reliable data and plug it into the investment method of valuation. But cost method of valuation, for two reasons. One thing, the cost plus land value will not show a proper value at this stage. Secondly, there is one condition imposed in going for the cost method of valuation. It says in itself that it has to be justified by a reasonable return on this investment. That reasonable return is not at all there because the rental values have gone down. So I can't say you have to keep so much of a margin between this and that, but I would say the reliability of the cost method of valuation is becoming more and more unreliable.
Adding to that, now if what happened if there's no rental evidence? So we generally noted that as a last resort, we have to use the cost method. Now, if there's no evidence, rental evidence or market evidence, so we have to go for a cost method. So in such a situation, would it be possible to use this high escalated construction cost details to finalize the value?
No, I would say we have to see what has happened in the past. We have experienced this type of crisis in the past. We have had this problem in 2008. We have had this problem in 2020 with the pandemic situation. So how did the market react at that time? What they the way they reacted was they came up to a certain value, and from the beginning of the crisis they stopped there. After that it went flat. It didn't come down, it went flat. So we have to take these past lessons into consideration, and we have to judge how the market participants behaved at those stages and adopt those values. And then I would say the best thing is go for the values that existed at the time of beginning the crisis problem. But if you take the high cost due to inflation and high cost of construction material and add it on, then I think definitely you are getting wrong, because that does not indicate the proper market value.
Okay, now I would like to move to Professor Padma Veerakon. This is very much appropriate question to you regarding the private public sector contributory database. Now all these are happened due to the unavailability of the information, and the information is one of the main tool where we talk about the big data as well. What kind of the policy suggestion from your end you can suggest to overcome the bottlenecks on real estate information gap?
Yes, database is the major problem existed in the real estate sector. We don't have any type of database when we are considering real estate sector in the urban land use planning. We need some property database in any the local authority level. Then I suggest in first hand we can develop database in the local authority level, in the property prices, land availability, then some vacant land. All things we can include as in the property database. Then property database is important for identify vacant land for real estate investors in any area. Then we need to publish those data in the public platform. Therefore, I suggest in the first we start at local authority level, then we connected in the regional level and national level databases. Then it is the open source. We publish those database in the open source platform and access everyone especially valuers, real estate investor, developers, people, everyone can access those databases. In the normally in urban land use planning mention, we have to maintain in the local authority land supply inventory, land policy inventory, and land management inventory. That type of inventories we need to maintain. Now in the presently, our local authority maintain only building application register. They don't have, they don't maintain that type of databases. Then valuation data also connected with that national level platform. And that is the thing where we can access databases.
Quickly add on to summarize our discussion. Madam, can you put forward the long-term solutions to overcome this crisis as a summary note?
Yes, Pratap. Then in the long term, now this is the peak time we can change our real estate, thinking pattern of real estate. We think residential real estate and commercial real estate, they are in high end. But that advantages going to small content of the people. But now we think we are agro-based country. We have sufficient agriculture history. Then our country, we have delicious vegetable and fruits in our country. Excellent spices in our country. In fish population around the country. But we have so many waste of vegetables, waste of fruits, like that. Then we need to develop industrial real estate for protect that fruit and fruit and vegetables, fish, etc. Then we introduce some food parks, and related to that type of industrial real estate, we can increase employment opportunities. And also those industries we can connect each urban local authority areas. Then at that time it helped to increase economy of those areas. Therefore, actually as a long-term strategy, we have to develop industrial real estate, and we introduce some new strategies to develop food parks and food processing zones like that. At that time, we can, if we introduce some food processing zone and food parks like that, we can attract some foreign investors. At that time, we can give some incentives. Then also we can attract local investors, and we connected with private-public partnership for development of those industrial real estate. Otherwise, in the high-end real estate, we cannot come to the end of our expectations. Therefore, we have to think about these real estate activities. Also, leisure real estate. In most of the tourists come Sri Lanka for some leisure activities, but they are not maintained properly. We think about that. We have most natural surrounding areas like Kalla, but we are not concerned more how to maintain those areas. Then we have to develop leisure real estate in our country, participation with the people, residents living in those local authority areas. Then I think in this case, public participation is important, because in this time, people need some jobs. People need some opportunities, business opportunities like that. Then we have to provide some incentives for local people. Therefore, the best thing is, in a long term, we have to think our real estate in a new way. Then most probably I suggest we have to develop industrial real estate. And when we consider in the residential real estate, we have to mention, we have to focus on affordable residential development. Affordable housing is very important in most Malaysia, Thailand, in those countries that mega cities have for access any people access houses for any people. They have affordable housing for each income level. Then we think about that. Therefore, otherwise we cannot survive real estate sector in this country, especially in this situation. This situation, we have to think about what are the long-term strategies as development of industrial real estate in our country.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I'd like to move to the construction sector. So, Mr. Mega, so what will be your final thoughts on long-term solution?
Yes, I think if I am to summarize, the question is, I think, whether the real estate industry can be a driver of this economic revival, or whether it can be a supplementary or participatory element. So I think if you were to be a driver, if you were to answer that question, then it becomes more difficult, because if you take examples from the world where the real estate sector has driven an economy, maybe Dubai is a good example, Saudi Arabia is a good example. They've had a vision, a long-term vision and a long-term arc where they have developed, say 2020 or 2030 vision, where they have developed the real estate sector around and try to drive the economy through that. So whether we can do that as an economy in this current state remains to be seen. But if I am to summarize some things I thought about, I think the first number one is we have to have political stability and macroeconomic stability, and the economy has to be put in the correct path. Without that, the investment into real estate will still be stunted. So that is number one. I think hopefully within the next months or the years, we as a country, we can reset and try to find that balance. Then number two, I think if you take the industry participants also, I think this forum is a good example. The main stakeholders of the industry in Sri Lanka have to get together, especially the academia and private parties, as well as the government authority and regulatory bodies. I think here the regulatory authority is here. That's a good sign. So this feedback, whatever is discussed, has to be compiled, reinforced, and brought into practice legislation through either the government or as the larger developers and other players. So that's number two. Then I think number three would be, as I said before, how to improve the construction costs as well as improve our product, real estate product. How we can cater to, I think Professor mentioned that the primary need, maybe if you take residential real estate, is the mid to low to mid income housing. So that is where most of the people require housing, and that is where the focus should be, at least from a common perspective. I think UDA is already, the focus is there. So only thing, the current economic environment has slowed down some of these plans. Then lastly, I think if you were to leap beyond this situation, we have to market ourselves. We have to leverage on our strength in the sort of our position in the country, the position in the region, the geographical position, as well as our other strengths as a country, and tourism and other resources we have, and try to leverage on this and improve real estate as was mentioned, not only real estate, but leisure and other industrial real estate as a complete package with a vision and a sort of a path to get there, so that is my final closing remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mega. So finally, as a policymaker, Mr. Lalit, what about your idea on the long-term solution?
Yeah, actually, we have to check whether the cause and effect. This is a very complex situation in Sri Lanka. We don't have many, we don't have systems in anywhere. Therefore, it's very difficult to find what is the cause and what is the effects also. The last May 2022, May says Fitch, Moody and S&P credit ratings, we were very, very low. We put into down through this one. Then we can think about the foreign investors will come here or not. Anyway, at the moment we we don't have foreign currencies. That's the crisis. For that one, we have to enhance export-oriented production and services in Sri Lanka. Then to get that foreign currencies, we have to establish many production and services, and then GDP will increase and per capita will increase. For that one, what we have to do, think about our labor is not cheap. Our electricity cost is very high. Our regulations are very complex and politically unstable. We have to solve these problems before starting to increase the production and services. Anyway, from UDA side, we have identified the new ways of the industries. We are inside of the box now. We are depending heavily tourism, apparel, foreign employees' money, tea, rubber, coconut, likewise. But locationally, Sri Lanka is located in a very strategical point. We have not taken yet that advantages. Another one is we are a tropical country. As a tropical country, we can focus our agriculture on organic vegetable and fruits. Think about that urban agriculture is the must for nowadays. Previously we have studied with your department also. Now still it's continuing. We are putting in these regulations into the urban regulations, and we are giving some. We are trying to give some effect to everybody should do some urban agriculture. The second one, the tourism. Tourism is one of the main income source in Sri Lanka, but it should be diversified. There's many people coming for surfing, for cultural visits, for diving and gambling also. There's a huge market for the gambling to tourists. So all are going to Singapore and Malaysia. The Indian subcontinent people, we can catch very big market for that sector also. Then we see even we visited last week with the president, the oil storage in Trincomalee, the wind farms, then industrial estate developments, what we discussed before, then services, technological parks. We already started one in the Tripoli, and a new university parks. Think about the Malebe area. UD declared huge lands and disposed to the new universities, and even the Homagama area. Now many universities are running there, especially Green University, even the one faculty of the Sri Jayewardenepura also there. And port developments. The recent past, there was a conflict, the east and west terminal development. When we discussed with Indian investors, they told us there are enough opportunities to establish that kind of terminals. The reason behind that, the Indians' water is shallow. The huge vessels cannot come into the Indian water. Therefore, we should take that advantage. That's why even nowadays the Colombo North Port also going to develop. The UDA will give full support for them acquisition of lands. Then solar projects. Even in Hambantota and Jaffna area, we have find so many land plots and giving investors. Then another opportunity is the Trincomalee Harbour. Trincomalee Harbour is one of the good harbour not yet utilized. Finally, what I have to say, the locational advantage of the Sri Lanka. we have some absolute and relative advantages to be taken from the world. We have not touched yet. These also, these factors also are coming under the real estate development. Think about the Dubai, and on other side, the Hong Kong, Singapore, and Macau. In between, there are no this kind of place like in Sri Lanka. That's why the recent past we have given some support to establish that port city, and nowadays we are working on marine city project from Kolpiti to Vellavatta. It will be a good project maybe within next 4 or 5 years. These kind of new avenues we are identified these days for implement within next 10-15 years. Finally, I have to say sadly, we should have a national plan for obtaining all these things. The UDA preparing the local plans, the local level plans by UDA. For preparing for local plans, we need the regional and national plan. From 2007 to today, we are preparing and finalizing the national plan. Time changing the governments and policies are changing. I'm praying for at least this time in 2022, we can finalize national plan to obtain everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lalit. To conclude, what you can take home. So from the academic perspective, argument is that better we'll have a proper database which support to decision making. And from the UDA perspective, regulatory perspective, so we need to have a national plan, and you should implement the pipeline project throughout the years and next couple of years. And one thing is that from the residential property market, we have to move forward to the industrial development, industrial activities, and so on and so forth. And Mr. Meg, you had noted that we have to rethink about the construction project, construction design and all, which suit for the economic crisis and for the revival of the economic crisis. So finally, I'll come to the valuation perspective, the one of the major part in the real estate. So the valuer's perspective, we have to think about the cost model and the investment model, and the most guided, suited model is the investment model over the cost model. So with that, we will come to the end of the 6th ICREMV Real Estate Talk, the business forum. So signing off from University of Sri Jayewardenepura. Over to you, Lakshi.